Partnered by Times Influence.
The National Association of Realtors India hosted the prestigious 9th NAR India Annual Convention Collaborate in Mumbai. The convention saw heavyweights from across India's realty sector come together to celebrate the spirit of growth and resilience shown by the Indian realty industry.
5 years back, on the 23rd June 2012, I attended my first NAR India Convention at this very hall. I was an ordinary member of Navi Mumbai Association of Realtors. For the first time, I saw more than 1,000 people from our fraternity gathered under one roof. I realized that I was a part of something very big. On that day, I decided I want to contribute to this organization and make a difference. During my president term of NAR India, the same principle will be our focus. Education, technology, business development, and branding.
Further, to add to the grandeur of the event, motivational speakers and thought leaders alike took to the stage to share their insights and to create a platform for collaboration among different industry leaders.
We keep our commitment to our customer to the best of our ability, and we try to see that they get second to none in the world. So everything that we do is for the end customer to be happy. People, after staying for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, still talk about the quality of the buildings that they live in, because we are still there.
In February 2013, we have entered. First 1.5 year, we have acquired. Second year, we have got the approvals. Third, we have launched, done the financial closure, and we have showed a 360-degree performance in the Mumbai market.
As an entrepreneur, we need something, and our requirements are simple. First, creating a brand. We need our name out in the market. Second, we need profits. And third, when we create a brand, when we have enough profits, ultimately what we want is freedom. Freedom wherein we are free and the team is working. And if that can happen, that is known as our victory. And that's where we create a formula or a system which is known as win, win, and win.
At a time when generating returns in the Indian real estate sector has become increasingly difficult due to oversupply and uncompetitive pricing, a highlighting of some of the ground realities in Indian real estate was organized to shed more lights on the sectors and subsectors within Indian real estate where the most promising opportunities lie. The panel featured Ramesh Nair, CEO and Country Head, JLL India; Sunil Rohokale, CEO and Managing Director of the ASK Group; Gopal Sarda, Group CEO of Kolte Patil Developers; Sanjay Dutt, CEO Operations and Private Funds, Ascendus Singbridge India; Farooq Mohammed, President FIA BCI World and Vice Chairman NAR India, and was moderated by Pooja Jain from ET Now.
So we thought we'd take this afternoon as an opportunity to have a focused conversation on some of the investment opportunities in the Indian real estate sector, along with the challenges. So luckily, I'm joined by a very distinguished panel to help me in doing just that. And this first question I pose to the whole panel: help us understand what are some of the ground realities when it comes to investing in Indian real estate?
I think it's a very broad question, and I would start by taking you back to 2005 when the foreign direct investment was opened in India in real estate. And we at that point in time roughly received about $27 to $30 billion of investments, of which very few made money, most lost money. The lessons for country was that we had very restrictive foreign direct investment in real estate as a policy. So it was not allowing investors to make informed decisions. Secondly, the developers actually did not understand equity. developers always borrowed money as a loan and they paid 10 or 15% at that point of time or maybe higher. And they were content with that because equity return expectations are very high. The reality is that now they know which developers are serious about real estate development as a long-term objective and which developers are opportunistic or they're playing on some leverage, whether it's land or whichever opportunity. And therefore, they now want to go with developers which are very disciplined in their business. If you are really grounded, if you really want to make investment in India, you need to understand not a country. You need to understand the country, the state, the city, the district in which this property is, and where you're investing. So I think there's a learning curve which has evolved, and there's still a curve. It's still not ended. But whatever we've seen so far is positive news. And we think the money that is being invested in India, the chances of seeing return on investments are very high, almost certain, if they stick to the fundamentals of investments.
Sunil, I'd like your point of view here. Do you share the same school of thought?
Yeah, I think we as a country, real estate is the single largest asset class is held by individuals in their personal investments. Apart from gold, the financial investments are still a way away. And what we see today, maybe there is a small amount of shift from a physical assets to the financial assets, and that's where the flows in the capital market are abnormally high. In today's context, the illiquidity portion, which is integral part of the real estate asset class, which we need to understand. It is not a linear A is equal to B and B is equal to C. If I buy at 4,000 rupees, that means it has to go only up. It is not possible for any asset class in the world, and real estate is no exception to it. So we need to understand that post-global financial crisis, so there are institutional investors, foreign investors, there are private equity investors like us, have come into the marketplace, have understood the nuances of the asset class, correct? Obviously, you can't look at the whole India as one, as many, and let's be practical about it, that we are no doubt by anybody's imagination is the highest, largest growth economy, which is given. Number two, world is disruptive. And we are fortunate that our leader is disruptive. Our prime minister is a disruptive prime minister. So in a growth economy, if you have a disruptive leader, only those people would survive who has basic fundamentals in place, in whatever you do. And for real estate, it is no more a gut. It is no more, as Sanjay rightly mentioned, it's a skill set of licensing or skill set of acquiring assets. It has to be an end-to-end. So you need to have customer centricity. That is the biggest learning.
And thank you, sir. And Farooq, I'd like to bring you in here. If you could help us debunk some of the biggest myths surrounding investing in Indian real estate.
Now, it's left to the investors or the high net worth individuals who are wanting to put in money. So it's perception. And from that perspective, I would say that India, and you can't use the whole thing as one size fits all, as I mentioned. And you need to look at micro markets, which market, which location, even in a city, if one looks at, a location and a zone wouldn't be doing as well as another particular area. So it's not that like you go into a Mercedes store and say, I want to buy a Mercedes and, you know, which is the best car available. There's one starting at 15 or 20 lakhs going up to 5 crores. So you've got to analyze and see which is the one that you're looking for, which is the one that fits you, which is the one that fits your budget right. And there's plenty of opportunity in this sector. And I see that you do your picking right and you're at the right place. You have the fundamentals right, like he's mentioned. You need to back a pedigreed horse. When I mean a pedigreed horse, you need to choose the right developer with the right location at the right time at the right price, and you can't be wrong.
Well, I'd like to build on that, what Farooq has mentioned. And in your view, Ramesh, are there certain subsectors within the Indian real estate sector that are especially well poised for growth? For example, there's a lot of talk about tier 1 cities having reached a saturation point. Do you believe that to be true? Which geographies do we need to be focused on?
The Indian real estate market is becoming more transparent. We used to be ranked around 52nd most transparent market around 5 years back. Today we are ranked 36th best market. On the residential front again, the good news is over the last 6 quarters, we have seen supply less than demand, where launches have been less than actual absorption, which again shows that the self-correction phase for the market is already started. Developers are not bringing in too much of products into the market. On the commercial front, 35 million square feet absorption, which we saw last year, probably the highest we have seen ever, even more than peak of 2012 or 2011 or 2007. Industrial as an asset class is emerging in a very big way across the country. We are seeing lots of demand for new asset classes like student housing emerging, and this is a new trend we are seeing. But the sad part is the biggest markets, which is NCR and Mumbai, we haven't seen much of capital appreciation in the last 5 years, because of which what Sunil said, a lot of these investors are getting into alternate asset classes like the stock markets. But again, our asset class, we all represent the real estate industry. We're talking huge numbers. How much ever people go into the stock markets, we are talking of just around $10 billion a year compared to gold or maybe a $20 billion number. Real estate is close to $180 billion. So that's where every time you see a stock market analyst sitting on TV, he'll always end up bashing the real estate sector, because even a 1% or a 5% drop in total investments in real estate is a big, maybe a 40% growth in at the overall investments in stock markets. So again, looking positive, future is going to be bright, markets getting a lot more transparent. We will see huge amount of consolidation, not just in the developer segment, we will see consolidation in the brokerage industry also. So these are some of my views.
And Gopal, I'd like to build on what Sahir has just mentioned. What do you view as short-term pains versus long-term gains in the Indian real estate sector?
See, if you see, Indian real estate has changed drastically. Gone are those days wherein the price appreciation was tremendous. So if you are launching project in the month of January, by December you could have seen 30% appreciation, 25% appreciation, 40% appreciation based on pocket to pocket. Now, if we compare from last 2014-15 to 2017, the prices are more or less stable. In terms of challenges, we have seen a lot of challenges. So government has continuously changed their policy. So it's like developers have entered in a ring, there were a set of rules, and all of a sudden you are changing the rules from back. So this is the first and foremost challenge, because if you are asking someone to enter in the ring and then you are changing the rules, so that is not a fair game. So that's where somewhere we have seen some kind of pains. So in terms of approval challenges were there. Second is that in terms of frequent changes in policies, they can't plan their entire project in one phase. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, there are some bigger developments. So 2 million, 3 million sort of development. And there is a change in terms of the product also. So earlier, in terms of spacious apartment was the flavor of the market. Now if you see from last 2 years, the flavor has changed, and now compact housing, or in terms of ticket size, or in terms of landing prices, is what developers are focusing because of the budget concern. So all of a sudden phase 1, phase 2 have started and designed the entire thing, but due to the demand of the market, because we have to launch our product as per the demand in the market. So you have to do some changes in D&D. Then again you have to go to the authorities and obtain the approvals. So this is one of the challenge. But slowly now government is saying they are started doing ease of doing business, but it's still on the paper, the practicality, the pulse of the market is different. So I think more and more transparency has started in terms of RERA, demonetization, GST. It's like a complete sectorial transformation. So I feel it's short term, yes, it's a sectorial transformation happening, but over a period of time, real estate industry will become a service provider, more of a manufacturing sector, and we have to promote ourselves as a factory. So short term, yes, we will say some sort of stress is there in the market, but good developers are still performing. Brand plays a vital role, and if you are good in terms of your overall hygiene check, in terms of your execution, in terms of your professionalism, in terms of your transparency for doing the business, long term there is a huge growth in the business. That is what I feel.
Sunil, I want your perspective here. Has the industry achieved that much needed accountability? And what role has recent government reform played in that equation?
Real estate as one sector was unorganized. There were no entry barriers for any stakeholder except banks and private equity investors. I think after long understanding, and I think we are so happy as an industry that we've been considered as an organized industry. We have been given infrastructure status. We've been carved out the area where they would like to focus more on. And we being an industry would get a lot of such benefits which are linked. Some of these have already been visible. Some of these, like right to service in government of Maharashtra, by giving a deferred premiums at various stages developer pays, where they don't have to really bring in all the capital at one go, but depending on various parameters, you can defer it for 3 years and 4 years. So the fundamental change in the industry is that when you become more organized, you become more transparent, you become more governed, you probably will see the reversal to the mean as far as the returns are concerned. Correct? Regression will happen, but you will be more certain. So what would happen is your margins probably will come down, but ROE will increase. And hence, I clearly feel that first and foremost, anybody, individuals, private equity, global private equity, has to understand that India is changing, and the returns on the investments probably are not the same what you think archaic days of 20 years, 15 years back. Today, you will get 20%, but you will get 20%.
And Farooq, traditionally, most capital raised by Indian real estate funds has been structured as debt financing. And, rightly so, they enjoy returns of upwards of 18% year on year. So, is there a case to be made for a pure play growth capital strategy to real estate development for equity financing?
Personally, I've never gone into debt. I've always played with equity because you get the upside and you get the downside, and the risk is always balanced off. But different individuals have different ways of doing things, and in certain markets when it's equity is cheaper when the prices are rising, and debt is cheaper, vice versa, and so on and so forth. But the flavor of the season again depends on the appetite of the investor and what he's looking for. And it all depends on the size, the ticket size that we're talking about, the location, and who the developer is and things like that. But what I was wanting to say was, Sunil was mentioned a point about interest being low. It's fabulous. But let's just peep outside. We're talking about 2%, 3% interest rates. We're getting excited here at 10%. Sunil, where are we? How can we sell homes to people at 10% and 14%? 1.5%, 2% is the rate of interest globally. And what are we doing? We're making new banks richer and richer and richer.
Farooq, this country, the 10-year risk-free bond is at 6.5%. Now, being the industry, there is a risk premium, there is a illiquidity premium to be added, there is a volatility premium to be added. So I think where I'm coming from 16% home loan rate to 8.35, and I'm pretty decently confident that home loan rate soon to go below 8%. 4% should
be right. 4%.
Absolutely. For that, inflation has to be 2%. So, and the GSEC has to be 3.5%, and which probably can happen, but I think it is too forward-looking statement at this point of time to really look at those numbers. Though the country balance sheet is looking good, fiscal deficits are in control and all that stuff, but I do not see that happening in the next 5 years' time.
So a couple of data points. Last year we saw close to $6 billion coming on the PE front into the Indian real estate market. In this, close to 4 billion out of the 6 billion was structured debt, although it's private equity firms giving it, but it was structured debt. Balance of the 2 billion, around 85% went into office. So there is very little pure private equity actually coming into the residential sector, and very, very few players. Sunil is one of those few players. Otherwise, the balance 85 people like Sanjay or a Blackstone or a Qataris or Abu Dhabi investment, those were the real private equity happening. So firstly, there is no pure private equity into residential happening, very, very less. Second is, I think what the downturn in the last 2-3 years has taught us is to deleverage. all developers have realized that unless I'm, let's say, a DLF or a Lodha or a Kalpataru, I can't be executing 10 projects at the same time. I need to be focusing on my top 3 projects and finishing it. As much as possible, developers today should deleverage, not get into 10 to 15 different projects, and again get back into that old cycle which we saw back in 2009.
Now, you are all seasoned real estate professionals.